So I was going to do the whole show on just the quarterfinals today, lads. Two massive matches obviously coming up. But there was a slight bit of news yesterday that I think we need to discuss, and that is the Joe show is no more. Joe Canning retired. Amazing, isn't it, that he retired, Michael? He retired so soon after the championship. It was like there's no speculation, no nothing now. It's put to bed and that's it. The one thing you might slightly worry about it is that it's knee-jerk. Yeah. You know, the disappointment has made him go, feck this, I'm done now.
I doubt it, Willie. I think because it happened so quick, this is in his head. That
yeah, you know, he said that in
it's
fairness.
taken his toll, and obviously when they were beaten, he rang his family and then told the lads in the dressing room, and it's better that way, you know. Pull the band-aid quickly. Look, it's a huge shock, it's a huge loss to hurling in general, but I think his biggest attribute for Joe was his mental strength. Like we're seeing in modern day hurling or modern day sport, we're seeing huge athletes, professional athletes quit their sports because of mental health and the pressure. Joe's under that pressure since he's 17.
Yeah.
And he's dealt with it phenomenally. And he's only retiring because of the toll it's taking his body physically.
Yeah.
So, and he's after, like he's got huge praise from players and media like over the years, but he's also got huge critique over his body type. Is Joe looking fit this year? If Galway lose, it's because of him. And he's dealt with that phenomenally. So, as well as his skills on the pitch, I think that's his bigger strength, his mental strength throughout his career.
Yeah, that's fair enough, Paddy. And he kind of alluded to the pressure he's under a little bit yesterday as well. And like, none of the three of us can ever walk in his shoes. Like, we'd be a long bloody way off it. So, like, I mean, you know, he has been the highest profile hurler now in the country, you know, for the last decade.
Yeah, he has, and it comes across like maybe he's not the person that sits with the easiest. Like you don't see him doing anything publicly bare it's, you know, like a sponsor or whatever it is. So he obviously isn't hugely into the public eye. But like, I mean, there's so much toll on the body, I'd say. Like, we're talking about him playing senior or inter-county since he's 18 or 19. Like, I can actually remember playing a challenge match against Portumna, I'd say in 05, and I think he was 15 at the time, and he was going to town as a corner forward. Like, so that's how long he's been playing long adult campaigns, and as we know in Galway, they didn't exactly take it easy on each other up there.
Yeah, Loughrea definitely maybe took a year off his career. He explained that it is physical injuries. He said yesterday the physicality injury wise is the problem. I want to be able to train the whole time. I've had a couple of serious injuries over the last number of years, even this year in the league. Thumb injury, hamstring went, my finger, my heel, that's just to name a few. Yeah. And like, he wouldn't complain about a lot of these things. He wouldn't even know about a lot of these things, Michael.
No, and he spoke quickly about recovery and sitting in ice buckets out his back all the time, Willie, and like, it just takes too much of a toll. And every opposition that Galway play or with his club, he's targeted every game. Like, he is targeted. He gets special abuse. I had to mark him so many times in my career, and it's not easy. You know, he's so good. He's good in the air. He's way faster than he looks.
Is he?
So much faster than he looks. Like, he left me for dead a few times. Now, I wasn't fast anyway, but no, he's so much faster than he looks, and his balance, and he's so wristy. It's very difficult to stop him in all aspects. You know, it's very difficult.
Because he's brilliant in the air as well, right?
Brilliant in the air. Like, he's really good. He's well capable of winning his own ball. He doesn't have to get the easy ball all the time. He's well able to win difficult balls. So he has everything as a hurler, but he also gets treatment all the time. And like, everyone hits him. And if Joe's running through, he gets hit harder than most. So he's taken that punishment throughout his career. So it's definitely going to take his toll on the body. So I'm not really surprised he's retired at this age, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe not. Did you ever get a scalp at him, Paddy?
I marked him a couple of times now. I don't know about a scalp. There's a couple of bits and pieces, but no, nothing really. I was lucky. I was marking the smaller lads, maybe Damien Hayes or something like that. But no, never got much of probably didn't get near him. But just as Mick was saying, it's that skill. But the speed, I think, was a big thing that no one realised. I think he was a straight line, more so straight line runner. That side to side, maybe that's why he didn't work all the time as an inside forward. Probably struggled to go side to side, that quickness, but when he got going in a straight line, he was very, very hard to stop.
Yeah, and like, what's he like on the field? Kind of, does he do much talking to his teammates, the opposition, anything like that? He's just
no, quite enough, Willie, to be honest with you. He's inspirational in his actions. Yeah, like, you know, like as Paddy said there, it is a straight line run. And I remember in Portlaoise, I think it was my last game actually, and I was full back on him.
So he retired you?
Yeah, he did, more or less. And the ball broke out in the 45 and I just missed it, and we turned for goal, and it was only us two. There was no one else between us, and he left me for dead, and I was there. I couldn't believe the pace of him at the time. And again, that straight line running, he's so direct. But no, just a serious hurler, will you know? And
yeah.
Like I've seen him leave a lot of lads for dead in his career.
Well, and I suppose he was always a full forward, Paddy, and the weight of the scoring on his shoulders. And then he kind of evolved into the centre half forward, the playmaker, putting it in. The pressure of scoring wasn't as great on him, and he turned into a demon for work, hooking, getting around the field, hitting lads. Like, it was a transformation of his role in the team.
Yeah, and I think you see that with a lot of people playing on the inside line. They it's not that they feel it, but the onus is on you to take ball from the outside and twist and turn and get your score. But when you're out the field, you know there's more of an onus to win the ball back and be a nuisance. And he did that very well. But I think what's lost in that is how strong he was. I'm sure Mick knows all about it, that if you try and break his tackle, he's very, very strong. And I do remember some of the players that played with him in LIT when he was very young saying that he hadn't been into weights yet, but when he went into the weight room, he was able to lift what everybody else was doing. So he was unbelievably strong around the place. But even out the field, I think Portumna started that with him. They brought him out. He played midfield one year, years ago, maybe 7-8 years ago, and they started that off with him. But it just gave him freedom as well. Like as Mick said, there's always somebody detailed to mark him, but it's that bit harder to mark a guy when he's out in the middle of the field. So yeah, I think he's the sort of lad, he could really play anywhere, and I imagine if he was centre back, he'd be maybe one of the best centre backs that ever played.
Yeah, geez, that could have been a role for him next year as a centre back, and get someone to mark, and like the Liam Rush kind of thing, Michael. You know all about that.
And he could easily do it, because you've seen like John Conlon, Shane Bennett, like these players can easily go back, and he's that playmaker sort of type player, Wooly, where he loves spraying the ball around. He loves these little passes, 20 or 30 yards, and he'd love to take a long score. So he could easily play in that position. But obviously he's thinking about his life after retirement and the toll. If he does give it another year, will he be able to play golf? Will he be able to, get about the place in 10 or 20 years? And you have to think about that, I suppose. And only he knows the toll it's after taking on him.
I've no doubt he's a brilliant golfer as well. I don't even have to see him playing to know that he's going to be brilliant. But he's so humble. To have that attention and to be the spotlight and to be that big a name for 10 years, and yet when you meet him, there's no ego there. Well, at least it's not transparent. And I'll never forget, we were doing a roadshow back when I was working for Off the Ball in Kilkenny, and he was working for one of the brands that sponsored our show. And he was only new in the role. And this is a live show, hurling show in Kilkenny. And this fella's up and down ladders putting decorations up of the thing. And I was just thinking, said it to the lads in work, what's that lad doing going up a ladder? Wouldn't he be better off now standing around and meeting people coming in the door and this is who I work for? The poor chap going up it. I was going to tap him on the shoulder and say, Joe, here, I'll do that for you here. You're Joe Canning. This is in around playing the All-Ireland final in 2012. This is Joe Canning. And he's no problem, being up a ladder, putting decorations up at a live hurling show, that's just kind of, he kind of alluded to stuff like that, talking yesterday. He says, sometimes I just feel uncomfortable around people because it's weird. At times you feel you have to be another kind of person just to be this perfect person that other people smile and you'll be okay with people. So maybe he was more comfortable up the ladder, Paddy, maybe, that's the kind of thing. I had this all kind of twisted.
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely when you're that well known, and look at, I know myself around home, you're kind of well known, but you're always known as the hurler, I suppose, a lot of the time, and you might be battling all your life to get away from that one persona that you have. And even if you're a cocky person, you can't even show that. If that's your natural disposition, you can't show that you're a cocky person. So it's really difficult. And I bet you if he goes away on holidays, it's probably the happiest he kind of is, because he can go into a pub or go into a shop or whatever and not have to smile at somebody all the time and not have to be the person they think he should be. So I completely empathise with it, and I see it with some of the tip guys around maybe the pubs in Thurles or Nina or wherever, and you're always on. You always have to have that kind of PR element to you, and I think it's really, really tough. And I think a lot of people go into wondering what's their true personality, what actually is it what is my true persona, because since he's 15, as I said, he's probably well known since he's 13 or 14, and now he's only getting out the gap at the other side now. So definitely empathise with it, and it's probably you always have to be very, very strong mentally to say, well, I have to stick to who I am.
Yeah, now that, and he mentioned that, he says, we all have shitty days too. You can't just be nice to everybody. Do you know what I mean? People have things going on in their life. And imagine, Joe, that's the pressure of being Joe Canning and Mr. Nice. There's mobile phones around all the time now. Some little child walks up to him, he's after having a terrible day and he just stays going. Or maybe not a child, he'd stop for a child, but some adult wants to talk about the match. You turn your back on him caught on camera, this big man, big shot. You know, that's probably the pressure he's talking about. I'm not sure if he can switch that off now he's retired though, Michael, can he?
No, but he won't have that pressure on him to do all that, will he? Like, he probably won't have, like, one bad interaction with Joe, somebody looking for an autograph, gets caught on camera.
Yeah.
And he's the biggest bastard in the game, like, you know, and the pressure that dealing with it every week, and like, no matter how big sports people are in Ireland, they don't get much bigger than Joe because he's known everywhere he goes. So it's very tough for him. So I think he's going to enjoy that element where he can put himself in his own surroundings. He doesn't have to be in the media eye. He can be with his mates, he can be in his club, where people won't be annoying him. And like, that's going to have to be, he's going to love that in his retirement, you know. And I'm sure he's getting hounded by media to do Sunday Game now. He will, to do everything. So we'll see if he does like a bit of limelight then, you know, and he might enjoy some of it. But
I don't think he will.
No, I don't think so. But we'll see in the next year or two.
Based off this final quote I'm going to leave you with, he says, I just hope I don't turn into a Twitter freak or something like that, giving expert analysis on stuff that seems to happen after you retire. That's one thing I won't be doing. So, like, I mean, you wouldn't want to be paranoid around this studio. I think he's talking about retired hurlers, Paddy. I'm in the clear here. I'm grand. I'm a retired footballer.
Luckily, I chose to spend a bit less time on Twitter myself recently. It's very, very negative. Like everybody just wants to give out to each other. I thought it was supposed to be for a bit of a laugh, but no, obviously not. But yeah, I see what he's saying. But at the same time, you know, he's after doing the Bord Gosh event the other day for, you know, how much money are you getting paid for that? So you're doing your interviews. If you're on the Sunday Game, you're giving your opinion, you're getting paid for it. Is that so much better? So at the same time, I know what he's saying, but at the same time, let's see when a few pound is flashed in front of you, how much of your opinions you'll be given.
Was it Roy Keane famously said he'd never do any of that pundit?
Yeah, there it is. Like, there it is.
Right. We'll leave it there, lads. We'll talk about the matches. Okay, so we'll start with the big one. Sorry, Mick. It is Waterford and Tipperary at the weekend, you'd have to say. And like, we have to start off with this one, Mick, is the Conor Gleeson issue, because Waterford are appealing this. Yeah. And they're appealing it on a technicality. And I'm pretty sure the technicality is that the referee should have sent Gleeson off before he went in at half-time, because it happened before the half-time whistle. Yeah. And like, my reading of this is that, you know, they were at a disadvantage for the referee not having done it before, because Liam Cahill could have organised everything and steadied the ship and all those kind of things. So, like, number one, does he deserve to play? And number two, does he deserve to get off in the technicality?
I'd love to see it rescinded. I'd just love to see the best players out on the pitch at the time, Willie. I thought, look, it was a straight red by the rules of the law, but as Derek McGrath said, there was no malice intent. No one got really hurt. I think it was very tough on Liam Cahill and his team that you couldn't work out a strategy at half time, and then coming out to that shock of what happened. I hope he gets off. I'd love to see it get off. I think I'm not sure about the rules. Does he have to send him off before half time or not? I'm not sure about that, but looking at it from an outsider's point of view, I'd love to see him playing.
Yeah. Usually when you see those reds coming out after half time, it's something that has happened going in off the pitch or in a tunnel or whatever, Paddy, which you can understand. Like, there's a clear disadvantage for Waterford. I don't think anyone would dispute that. I hate players getting off on technicalities, but I think on this instance, because there was very little in it. Now, I know Joe yesterday said he had to get a scan on his wrist, so like, what do I know about, you know, how sore a flick is? But I don't know, what's your take on it, Paddy?
Yeah, I'd be similar to that. I think it was a red card in terms of he attempted or did strike somebody, right? So that's a red card. I don't know, should these things be. I think there should be a more minor offence that's a yellow card, and that could fall into that. But at the minute, it is a red. And it's not his first time. Did something stupid in 2017 semi-final where the match was over, and so he has form. But I think you're really disadvantaged, Watford, though. I mean, if the technicality, I think it's correct. Like, when I saw that red card going up, I actually wasn't completely shocked. It feels like I've seen something like it before, so I wasn't completely shocked that happened. But I did say to myself straight away, like, could the referee not have at least went in at half time, said to them, called the manager and said, look, your cornerback number 2 is getting sent off. He has to, and at least you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes to get ready. Liam Cahill is on the sideline. His players probably don't even realise, some of them, when they got onto the pitch, and they could have been straight out of the championship if they weren't as far ahead. So I do think a huge disadvantage. I would feel aggrieved if I was Waterford management team, no doubt, because if that was me, you know, panic sets in. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think he will get off, because I think there's probably some sort of rule or precedent that you can do it, and it has been done already. But it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, it definitely will. Definitely will be interesting to see. How are Tip looking at this, Paddy? Like, I mean, Tipperary usually beat Waterford in Championship. Let's be honest about it. But this looks like a Waterford team with a lot of pace, a lot of work rate. Something Tip might not necessarily like.
You're saying it's a bad matchup,
and they can do it for 70 minutes.
Yeah, 100, yeah, and we can, okay. Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot. To be fair now, I've been, obviously around Tipperary, and there's a bit of pessimism, all right, and I think it's based on that Waterford are such a running team, and you can feel that around the place. Now, I wouldn't be as pessimistic about it. I do, I'm looking at, since Liam Cahill took over, we've played 2 league games. Now, this year, Waterford wiped the floor with Tipperary. Yeah, I saw that match, and it was very, very poor stuff. And last year they did well when he came in. I think it was one of his first matches, played Tipperary, and also give him a lot of hassle. So I think Waterford have it in them to give Tip a really, really hard battle. But I do think Tipperary will come strong at this match. I would say they feel like that second half was just, there's a lot of pride in a lot of these players. Obviously there has to be some tactical changes. I would see maybe 2 changes at most for Tip. I don't think there'd be the whole kitchen sink of 4 or 5 changes. I see maybe a couple of guys coming in, either Niall O'Mara or Mark Keogh, and I'd say Paddy Goodell, who came on and ran a few balls, he'd probably come on as well. So they will battle that out. They'll go a little bit of pace with a little bit of pace. But the other thing to think about, Waterford are very dangerous, playing well, but Stephen Bennett probably wasn't tested as a centre-back the last day. They owned the ball around the middle of the field, or Shane Bennett, sorry, get mixed up. They owned the ball around the middle of the field. If Conor Gleeson is gone, then you have Ian Kenny and you Shane McNulty probably in the corners. So have you little mismatches for Tip. So it's very, very interesting, I must say. But if Waterford own the ball like they did last day, and Jamie Barron is let take control like he did, then it will be a very long day for Tipperary.
Yeah, well, that's the Shane Bennett wasn't tested, and it's a very brave decision that playing centre half back, knowing that there's a good chance he'll be marking Conor Whelan.
Yeah.
Now, this week he could be marking Bubbles, which would give him another completely different, test. But it's a very brave thing to do, isn't it?
It is. And Cal's not afraid to do that, Willie. But for me, if I'm Tip, I'm putting Noel McGrath in centre forward, because he's a specialist in the area. He'll make him work. And you've seen, like with Conor Whelan, any balls that caused trouble, it was running onto the wings and taking the centre back out of there. I think Noel McGrath would run riot if he's centre forward, and Tip use him properly, like find him all the time, because it's Shane Bennett's in a new position. You won't know where to hold or go with him, and it will cause havoc in the back line. And then the other move I'd do for Tip, I'd put Michael Breen on Jamie Barron and just say forget about your own game and just follow him everywhere, because Michael Breen's an unbelievable athlete and he could stay with him. Well, if he can stay with him, he's a very difficult player to mark. But
would Flynn mark him better?
I don't know. I think Michael Breen would have all the attributes to just stick with him and ruin his game. Ruin his game. And I think if them 2 matchups would work, I could see Tip winning the game. You can
say, how will Tip's heads be at, Paddy? I know you said they'll be coming out trying to prove themselves again, but they've also got a fierce setback. Like, I mean, Tipperary think of winning All Irelands, right? And that's where their heads are at. And we'll talk about Dublin coming into their game in a different probably headspace. Tipperary have been landed back on their arses by, let's be honest here, and how will they lick those wounds and go, right, lads, let's put that aside, we're still All Ireland contenders? Will they be trying to convince themselves that? Like, are they still? There's I don't know really how they would be talking amongst each other. You would know the psyche better.
Well, I just thought it was interesting, a couple of things that came out in the media. Liam Callis or Sheedy straight away talked about that third quarter, and sort of compartmentalising it into that third quarter.
Yeah.
So I think he is very, very good at sort of minimising damage on a team. And I remember my own days playing, we played Kilkenny in a league match and we got this stride down in Nolan Park. I remember at half time we were getting the stride, and he took all that away, and he blamed himself for everything. Completely, said, this, the way I set it out today now, lads, this is all my fault basically. And he totally took it away from the players. And I can see him minimising what happened last night and saying, look, lads, we just weren't right in that third quarter, and it snowballed and it got away from us. Even though, look, I think we would say that maybe the true Limerick came out and Tip weren't able to keep with him when they had blown the fuel gasket in the first half. So that's fine. Maybe we'd say that. But I think their confidence will be as high as it can be after a second half like that. I think they'll look at this match as their one-off match and won't be fearing Waterford as much. Waterford won't be fearing Tip. So I actually don't think it'll be too bad. I feel like they'll look at player for player. We fancy ourselves against C, and I also think Waterford are probably thinking the same way, but I don't think it'll be too bad. And I do think that they'll still feel they are contenders for the All-Ireland. I think Liam Sheedy is built like that. He's a very, very strong-minded person, and how he's going to convince them of it, I'd love to see that in action inside in the setup, but I certainly know he has it in him.
Yeah, he definitely has a bit of work to do. And then they're coming in, Michael, like we're talking about, they have to deal with Callum Lyons, Jamie Barron, Shane and Kieran Bennett, all running from midfield in the back. Peter Hogan's energy in midfield, who really surprised me the last day. He was everywhere. It's just that energy. Yeah, that was the one thing that strikes it, and that's what everybody knows. Ronan Maher was talking during the week, and he says the energy they bring, it's going to be very hard to beat them over 70 minutes because they cover some amount of ground. Like Tip are very, very aware of that, obviously.
And all players you mentioned, Wooly, are very similar to Limerick's half-back line in midfield. All runners, all energetic, and it caused huge problems for Tip. And it will. And we see Liam Call's strength again in putting Peter Hogan in there, and it worked a treat. Like, he was brilliant. His energy he brought around the place was phenomenal. But I think where Everton stuck with Desi Hutchinson last week, I think it'll be a different kettle of fish on Cathal Barrett, who I think will stick with him everywhere. I don't think he'll get as much ball and as much joy from long balls going in, being able to control them and pop them off, because I think Cathal Barrett's flying this year, and it'll be a different kettle of fish marking him wise. And that was a huge game plan for Waterford. Send that long ball in, stick, runners coming in. And I don't think they get that joy in the game plan against him if they go with that game plan as well as running the ball. But it worked so well. It worked out so well for them the last day.
It did work out. It was a great game plan, really, Paddy, because Desi Hutchinson, his strength is running the line. He never stops running, and it does stick to him. I actually think having another lad in there messes Desi up because he can't go where he wants. So, he's standing in the middle now, and he's got two full sides of the field open, whereas the other way he's curtailed a bit, and do the cross kind of double across runs, who knows. So now you have a Tipperary sweeper, you have 2 versus 1 in there, and on the other end you would have a sweeper covering maybe 2 more players. So it is an advantage to play 1 in there. It's an advantage to use his speed. It's an advantage to leave both sides completely open, and you probably just need to see it being done to actually say, geez, that's actually an excellent idea.
Yeah, it is. And look, I was fortunate to mark him, or unfortunate to mark him in a club, and that's exactly what happened. It was nearly, when you play like a spine, and he was the deep one inside, but he could run either side, so he was able to go 21 to 21. And to be fair to him, whether it was soccer or whatever way, he has brilliant movement and timing. So he knows when the ball is coming in, and he knows the right space to go into. So he is excellent at that. And look, he gave Cathal a tough time down in Walsh Park in the league fixture. Now, I think Tip's work rate that day was horrendous, so I think that lent a lot to it. But Cathal Barrett will be well aware about what Desi Hutchinson is able to do. But as Mick was saying, and he's completely correct, the last day Waterford were pinging balls into him coming off the man. But this all depends on if Tipperary allow Waterford to gain that control around the middle. Now, it is hard to stop, but if they can stop that way of running off the man, popping passes, breaking tackles, then Tip, I think, will have a lot of their damage done, because they won't be able to play that game. If we remember the start of the year, I think Waterford were playing Clare. Clare sat out the field a little bit, and when they met him, they put piles of players around him. Now, I do think Waterford have upped the energy level since, but there is also a template to go and slow down their way of playing.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. Can Tip keep that going for the whole 70 minutes? That's the big question. Yeah. I'm sure Tip will do it until half-time. They've proven they can do it. They've proven they can actually bring more to a team like Limerick or Waterford, but when Jamie Barron doesn't stop, Callum Lyons does not stop. None of these lads stop. They're going the same in 70 minutes. Paddy talked about bringing maybe 2 of the under 21. Is it a time for Liam Sheedy to go, here we need 3 or 4 and bring on some of the older lads later? Yeah,
well, we've seen with both Waterford and Tip that in the second half they both struggled, Willie. So legs wise, it's going to be a question for both teams. We're talking a lot about Tip. That half back line for Waterford were brilliant last day, really good. But you can't allow the likes of Jason Ford had the freedom of the pitch the last day against Limerick. Sorry, completely. Yeah,
so did I.
I couldn't think.
I will never forget it.
Yeah, but he had the freedom of the pitch. He was unbelievable, and Waterford will not be allowed. The half back line can't allow him wander around the place because he just do too much damage. So one of the half back line is going to pick him up. So they won't be able to go up and down the pitch. Probably Kieran Bennett. But like,
they'll have more to worry about.
Exactly,
yeah.
they will have more to worry about, because you can't let him do it, because if he's free, he's going to score. Like, no matter where he is in the pitch, he's some set of wrists and he's some striker of the ball. So if he has freedom, so that Waterford are going to have to think about that, as well as attacking forward all the time. So it's going to be very interesting. Like, I was very impressed with Waterford. I thought their off the ball play was unbelievable. When they went forward, it was unbelievable. But Tip have seen this against Limerick, and I think Limerick are the best team in the country to do it. And Tip could stop them in that first half. I think they'll have enough in the bodies and in the legs to do it in both halves, fully, to be honest with you, and get through the game.
Tip have we know Tip have the firepower, Paddy. Like, I mean, on the Waterford point of view, like, I mean, what kind of matchups do you see? I think we'd all probably agree Barrett will mark Hutchinson. Who's picking up Stephen Bennett, or will they get someone for him, or Gleeson?
Stephen Bennett, I think he plays traditional centre forward. I think, I don't know, are Tip going to play Brendan Maher as a centre back again, or are they going to have him maybe marking as a wing back, pushing forward? I would probably prefer to see him in that role. They might put a Seamus Kennedy at centre back, who I think would, for the most part, he'd mark him, but I think he'd sit back. So I think it'll be that tactical affair where Stephen Bennett slips out the field. You're not going to see all the Tipperary centre back running out after him. I'm not sure how much, like, it's hard to know. I think Paddy Maher will be inside, and whoever's in there, if they've Fagan in there, if they've Austin Gleeson in there, I think he'll get a lot of confidence from the last match. I think he did very well under a lot of pressure against Seamus Flanagan. And then Ronan Maher, again, will they change it up? Like, he could as well, if Jack Fagan's on the wing, I could definitely see Ronan Maher on Jack Fagan, because Ronan is as good as any good, a lot of good forwards in the country catching the ball, and I think coming from behind him, he's better than nearly all of them. So I could see him on Jack Fagan.
But will the likes of Paddy Maher find himself now out around that middle third? Because Tipperary can't leave, the Waterford will be only leaving one fella up. So, like, you have a situation where that'll be Barrett, and whoever decide then maybe to cover Hutchinson, you've the other Tipperary backs kind of out in the middle of, marking lads that are flying all over the field.
Yeah, I don't know that they actually play only the one inside. Still do think they have a lot of lads that are around 30 metres out from goal. So Paddy Maher will have to be in there somewhere. But I do think, again, he'll have gained a lot of confidence. I think that's the thing you have to think about, is he was left in there with Seamus Flanagan last day. I have often said how much I admire him. There was good balls going in, and he produced some play that he has produced over the last 5 or 6 years, or 10 years, sorry, the last day, and he kept up to him at different times. Now, this is a fast team, but I could see him definitely having confidence in him. Actually, you could see Paddy Maher maybe having a very, very good game, I'd say, this weekend. Yeah.
What about those long puckouts we saw from Tipperary against Limerick? Like, I mean, they obviously identified, English at full back, maybe not as comfortable, and it worked brilliantly for them. Prunty is not one you'd probably identify for not being able to command that area. So it'll be interesting to see what Tip do that way.
But Willie, the full forward line don't even have to win the ball. It's just a breaking ball. And Tip have always been brilliant at this in their half forward line, where they come on to breaking ball. Their timing is unreal, and they can really hurt teams. And they will try it again, because they're so good at the half forward, and they're so good at coming onto them breaks full tilt. And so is Jake Morris. You don't want him under a ball. You want him under Shane Buchanan and him sweeping around the place as well. So it could definitely be a tactic that works, but like that matchup of Jack O'Connor, Jack Fagan and Ronan Maher be unbelievable.
That'd be good,
or Jack Fagan and Barry Heffernan. Like, I love Jack Fagan. I think he's brilliant to watch. He's so physical, he's so fast, and he's so direct. I love watching him hurl. So, and we haven't even mentioned Austin Gleeson yet. So, he's due a huge game in championship, and he'll relish this against Tip. So I can't wait for Saturday.
That's the thing. Cause, we don't know much about Waterford, because the Shane Bennett thing. I remember when I saw that game, I was saying it saw that team. I was saying it on the Monday. I was like, relax, he won't be centre back. Gleeson will go centre back. Shane Bennett will go full forward. And that's very obvious to me. And it didn't. And like, Irla Daly could be back, or was he injured? We're not sure. Like, he could be back centre back. You could have Shane Bennett. Anywhere. There's some of the Waterford lads could end up anywhere, Paddy. They're hard to plan for.
Yeah, and you know what? That's why you were talking about matchups there. And I think bar Desi Hutchinson, I don't see too many matchups being done by Tipperary. I think you'll be picked for a position. Yes, one or two might go out the field, but I think they'll be followed to a certain extent. I just think, like, Patrick Carton I've never seen him play as a wing forward for Watford before, yet the last day he seemed to be spending all his time out the field. So I think it's very, very hard to say. Austin Gleeson named as 14. Again, we saw him out around the half-forward line a little bit more. He could be a Barry Heffernan. He could be probably up Barry Heffernan's street as well there. So that will be intriguing to see how it starts, see how they line up. and what sort of formation. But it's fairly mouth-watering, I think. And then I suppose I just want to go back on the puckouts you were saying. I think you're right. They can't go too long with the puckouts. But this time you have Ian Kenny. You probably have Shane McNulty in the other corner. You have Kieran Bennett, who played more midfield last year, and Shane Bennett hasn't played centre back at inter-county level, so it will be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how the longer puckouts go this weekend.
In that half-back line, there isn't any, like when you're looking at Kieran Bennett, Shane Bennett and Calum Lyons, there's no standout kind of fetcher. Maybe that's an area Tipperary will target.
Well, Calum Lyons has an okay hand, but that's where Tyg de Burker would eat like puckouts. You know, he's brilliant, and Waterford will be lacking that, will he? And that's.
But Gleeson could play wing back, and he's brilliant in the air. So.
I know. Yeah, but will he go back there? Like, you know, this is what I love. It's intriguing. I can't wait for the teams to come out. I think Gleeson will stay in the forward line somewhere. And I don't think he'll tinker much with the half-back line after changing it up last week. So, but it should be a game plan. Tips, test them quick, see what they're like.
Yeah. What about the two Liams, Paddy? Just to finish up, like, I mean, it does add a little bit more spice onto it in that, like, there's a very good chance Liam Cal could be managing Tipperary next year. Like, I mean, Liam Sheedy is in his third year. Like, he's the very obvious choice. Like, would he jump straight across to Tipperary, or would he think he might have one more year with Pádraig Mahoney back and Tyg de Burka back? It's hard to know, but he's definitely the pretender to the throne on the sideline.
He definitely is. I think if you were to ask all the Tipperary people, hurling people, they'd be saying the next man up will be Liam Cal. I think you could only admire the way the team's energy, their fight, their resilience, that little bit of old school mental toughness, and even the way they're turning their season around. Like, geez, at the start of the year, and I often talk about All-Ireland final hangovers, and it is a real thing from my experience, and they had it, but they're after really, really squeezing it out of themselves. And again, Liam Cal's roughness is after coming to the fore. So I think it is an interesting one. Like, Liam Sheedy, it's, you know, it'll be a funny one to see how this year ends. You know,
do they get on well, the two of them, or would there be a bit of friendly competition there?
I've no idea, to be honest with you. I wouldn't know Liam Cal well at all, to be honest with you. And Liam, you know, keeps himself. So I don't know. I would say there's a good respect against him. I know that Liam was kind of in for the job the last time, Liam Cal, and then Liam Sheedy came in at the last minute and sort of, you know, accepted the invitation. So I don't know if there's something there, but it will be interesting. I'm sure, you know, you're kind of competitors in a way, so I'm sure there's an extra bit on that. Yeah,
because they don't stand back on the sideline either on it. And I think you're leaning towards Tip here, Mick.
I am. It's so close, Willie. I love watching Waterford play. I just think Tip have too much in their locker. Like, I thought they were unbelievable in that first half. I know Limerick came back, but that's some of the best hurling I've ever seen them play. And I think if it was any other team that second half bar Limerick, they would have walked away with it. So I'm gonna just edge out Tip.
I'll go for Waterford, so just to leave the casting vote with you, Paddy.
Yeah, I think I'll have to go with Mick there now, non-biased, but I do think it'll be such a close game. I'm a little bit worried. I talked about long puckouts there. I'm a little bit worried if Tip go into that for a whole game as well, because that Jamie Barron, Peter Hogan, Bennett coming out the field, like they'll make their chances from there. So I'm a little bit afraid about that, but I do think Tip have a lot of talent up front. If Conor Gleeson is missing, I think it really destabilises a backline that's kind of patched together already. So, look, I would just back Tip.
All right, yeah. Well, it's going to be an absolutely fantastic game, I'm sure. We'll take a break and we'll come back with the other quarter-final. So the other big one at the weekend is Dublin and Cork. It's in Semple Stadium at 7 o'clock on Sky Sports. This must bring back loads of memories for you, Michael. I'm thinking of 2013. You're going into the game strong favourites, Leinster champions. I'll let you take it up from there.
Bad memories for me personally, Willie. But yeah, look, this game, there's so many unknowns. You know, like, we haven't really seen the best of Cork or Dublin, I don't think, this year. The last game out for Dublin, I was so disappointed. I think the management got it wrong, firstly, starting Owen O'Donnell. Like, 2 weeks after a hamstring injury, I don't think he should have been near the pitch, and you would have had a fully fit Owen O'Donnell for Saturday. Now we're not going to see him.
Yeah.
It's a huge loss for Dublin.
And that's not even a hindsight analysis. That's obvious analysis. Yeah, like, I know the chap must have really wanted to play that Leinster final. But yeah,
like, Owen O'Donnell's a phenomenal athlete, Willie. I remember, like, even when he came into the panel when I was finishing and we were doing tests, he was winning everything. Like, he's just that sort of person. So, like, if he was telling the staff he was good to go, and obviously the physios thought he was good to go. But just 2 weeks with a hamstring injury, like, you know, it's different. No matter what you do in training, it's different than running out in Croke Park and going full tilt. So I just think it was a huge loss for everyone mentally. I think it would have been much better just to start someone else and being, that's it, like, the team know where we stand. And again, Keane O'Callaghan being missing with COVID, it was huge. Like, that's 2 full back line who were both hurling really well. So it was a huge loss to Dublin straight away. But throughout that game, I just thought they were hanging on to Kilkenny, not going to try and not winning the game. And they never looked like winning the game. And I was so impressed with them with Antrim and Galway and their game plan and how they approached it. I thought they lost that a lot against Kilkenny. Look, with the 4 lads gone with COVID, and Owen had a lot to do with it. But just, I don't know where we stand now coming into Saturday. You know, I'm a bit worried.
Any ins on that panel? How did it feel about the 3 lads having to step out? Like, I mean, were they perfectly healthy? You know, was it just a pure frustration that they were close?
Yeah, look, just that Saturday coming along and just said you're out. Like the lads would have dealt with it properly. Like, look, it's done. Do you know? But I think the Owen O'Donnell issue was bigger than the 4 lads missing, because they knew that on Sunday that he was gone. Whereas it was a shock with Owen going off after 5 minutes.
Well, that was the 4 lads was out of their hands, whereas the Owen O'Donnell thing is a mistake kind of their own.
And then he's gone, where the lads are back now. Do you know? And also the worrying part for me is 18 to 20 for Dublin, whereas they're not, like, Sean Moran came in when Owen went off and was taken back off.
Something going on with him.
Yeah, huge crisis of confidence. Like, I love Sean Moran. He's a smashing hurler. He's been outstanding. He's dropping balls I've never seen him drop. His head's down. Energy's not there. I don't know what it is, because he's a brilliant hurler, but I'm hoping he comes good now if he does. But impact's not there for Dublin. Mark Schutte started. I thought, now here's your chance. Ronan Hayes isn't here. Nailed down a position. Again, had no impact on the game. And I think Dublin need them players. We see how important they are to Limerick and Tip and Waterford. Dublin haven't got the impact subs at the moment, and I think they're going to need them on Saturday to have a huge influence. So
yeah, no, they
hopefully
are. Like I mentioned, Paddy, we'll get into the game in a minute. The game is on Sky, and there's a Senator Tim Lombard giving out about this. I can kind of see where he's coming from, and I can't, because he said it's hard to believe another Cork game won't be televised on the national broadcaster. It calls into question the entire ethos of the GAA. It's appalling that there won't be those who won't have the option of getting a ticket and are able to watch it at home. It's a thundering disgrace. I don't know, Paddy, what's your take on this? Are we over this kind of these conversations? It is more unfair when not that many people can go to the match, but at the same time, like I was tweeting about this yesterday. RT is €160 a year. RT is not free. People think it's free. Like, you can get Sky Sports in for the couple of months that the championship's on and then get rid of it. You know, it's on demand. It's what you want. Yeah. Whereas on RT you have to pay the 160 anyways. And if I lost everything outside of GA on RT, I can live with that. Yeah. If you want to knock down that price for me, I'll take the knockdown, you know, and take it for the few months, because the RT have very little outside championship anyways. They're starting to show the odd league game and the odd club game, and that's kind of it. So I don't know, are we over this conversation that games are on Sky? I do accept the point that having all your games that season on Sky could be a bit tough.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards they have to be on some Irish channel. Now, maybe the other channels aren't interested, the Virgin Media or the
they are
interested in doing channel.
They don't have the rights.
I do think first and foremost that you do need to get as many Irish eyes on it as possible. I understand, you know, business, you know, and economics and all that stuff play their part, but you know, we pride ourselves on it being our game and you know, such a, you know, a national treasure, like, but now we're making it something that's international. And like, to be honest with you, you're saying, okay, 3 months of the year, fine for Sky, but it's not always possible for people. And I do feel sorry for the older people, like even my parents and our grandparents out there. And they don't want Sky. They never wanted it. They don't want anything online. They don't want Sky Go. They have their television. They probably have it on that Sairview type thing. Yeah. And they hit the button and there they go. So they're paying for their channels. And I do think there should be more of an onus on the GA to say, look, Sky can have it, that's fine, but we do need to keep it predominantly for our free-to-air channels, which, look, a TV license is a TV license. If you're in England, you have to pay for Sky separately to your TV license. So it is, to me, it's a different argument, really.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, that's the thing. Virgin obviously bid for it the last time, and they lost out to Sky. Yeah. So like that would be proper free to air, because they're just a commercial station and they get their revenue off you know, advertisers. RT have that They have that licence fee and they have everything the Virgin have, which for me is an unfair advantage in a lot of ways. But like, I mean, I of course I accept Paddy's point, and that's why I think it's very unfair to have, probably is unfair to have all 3 games in that season. It's just the one-off random games, you know, because at the end of the day, what's actually happening here is RT still have the same games they always have. Sky just have extra games, so you're just missing out on the extra games rather than what you still have everything you always had before.
Yeah, I agree, Paddy. Like, it's just it's the parents you think of, and the grandparents. Like my parents were like, I can't use that remote. I don't know how that works. You know, I can't understand that. Don't go near it. But I think the onus is more with RT. Go out there and make sure you get a game. You know, make sure you have them. I understand Sky. Willie, like, if you know what's going to happen, the majority of people should go out there and get the subscription for 3 months and make sure you have all the games. I just feel sorry for the elderly more than anyone else. You know, they're the only ones I feel sorry for missing out on Irish games. Yeah, no, it's probably right.
Camira, we talked about how Tipperary are coming into this game psychologically. Dublin coming into it probably in a good place, considering, like you said, they never really looked like winning that. But Maddie put the spin on it that he's really proud of them, and it was a great heroic kind of performance. I'm paraphrasing him now. And they were missing the 4 lads. Their warrior full back went off. I'm sure he can get it into their heads, lads. That wasn't us. Let's show what we're about the next day.
Yeah, Dublin, they're the most comfortable, Woody, when they're underdogs, and they're huge underdogs here on Saturday. And I think, like, you know, O'Donnell's not going to play. You have Cian O'Callaghan back there. He's been flying. So full back wise, you're sorted, you know. And I just think it's mentality. If they approach the game like they approached Galway, with that tenacity in the tackle, they'll have a huge shout for winning the game. It's just if they do. There's always a thing with consistency with Dublin.
But isn't that terrible? Is that not a given? The Kilkenny consistency of aggression and tackling and hooking and blocking, like that should almost be a given every game with every serious team.
The lads, look, there's a difference between hunting and packs and not bottling up people properly. Like, the lads worked hard against Kilkenny. They were 2 or 3 men around the ball, but they weren't stopping Kilkenny popping that hand pass out. And Galway or Cork will hurt them all the time with that. If there's going to be 3 men around a person, you can't allow him pop that ball out. And Dublin were allowing that to happen again and again with Kilkenny. A man was coming into a tackle, being surrounded by 2 or 3, but he was still getting the hand pass out. And it can't happen, because with Cork's runners and support runners, they'll destroy Dublin.
Yeah.
And especially from 8 to 12, Cork are so strong, and that's what worries me. I've always been concerned about Dublin's midfield. I think Luke Meade and Dara Fitzgibbon are unbelievable hurlers, and they will kill Dublin if Dublin haven't got a proper game plan and lads to mark them come Saturday.
But how do you stop that ball? So obviously if there's 3 lads surrounding one, and you're saying don't let the hand pass get away, because you're obviously 3 men down, there's 2 free men somewhere. But how do you do that? Do you wrap hands around? Do you get a bit cynical?
Yeah, absolutely. You get fully cynical. That hand that has the ball, that's your main concern, Wally. If he can't pop that, like, I'll be grabbing it, I'll be slapping it consistently. Obviously you can't give away frees all the time, but just have to be a bit smarter in that tackle. Like, they were hitting, they were working hard, but the cuteness wasn't there, where the hand pass was always getting out. So if you stop that, they'll have a great chance. But they just have to be cuter in the tackle. Yeah. Like, the work rate is there, but just has to be cuter.
That's a fair point, Paddy. Is that something you notice? Like, that's not something I'd really notice in a match. But like, I understand the logic behind it. If there's 3 lads surrounding one, that ball has to be caught for over carrying, or, you know, it has to be go dead.
Well, yeah, I mean, often the times, if you're more than one tackler around somebody in position, somebody has to get their arm on the hand passing hand, and stop that making an actual action, because that's the big thing. You want him to drop it or be turned over. That's the thing. The only thing these days I see is, and I'm not even complaining about it anymore, I don't even care anymore, but you're allowed to throw the ball basically in hurling. Like, it's a new thing. You just throw it. It quickens up the game. I think if everyone's kind of half allowed to do it, where it's a bit of a muddled area, I'm okay with it. But that's the big problem this time, whereas you're punished as a tackler. I've often know, if I'm tackling well, I'm making him work really hard, and over carrying the ball and hand passing just aren't enforced anymore. So it is difficult. Maybe it's for the free flow and the fact that the tackle is kind of like so ambiguous.
Yeah, the little meter passes you can throw, but 5 meter pass is being policed fairly. Traditionally.
The 5 meter pass will be more pronounced of a throw. So you have the hand has to leave. So you get away with it for the little meter pop passes. Yeah. But Paddy said he's right. It's harder to tackle it. It's much harder to tackle as a defender now, because they're getting away with it so much. Doesn't have to be pronounced the hand pass as much. But
right, I'll put this one to you. So Ronan Hayes is a big one that we spoke about the last day, because Hugh Lawler's influence in the Leinster final, and Dublin are getting nothing out of full forward line. Like, they're not, and they have to have some danger in there, or they're not going to have a chance.
I know. like Ronan Hayes, it's brilliant. He's back, and I think he's been flying. But he has to get the right ball in as well. Will he? Like, he has all the attributes. He can win it high, he can move low. You need more out of Keane O'Sullivan. And Keane Boland sort of been playing in there but coming out and playing in the half forward line more. So like Keane O'Sullivan
what you get out of Boland,
smashing hurler. Like I've seen him again and again in club. The pace of him, and he's really good. Just have to see more finished article, come Saturday from him. So, and I think Dublin have really worked on their puck outs. Like Alan Nolan is finding Danny Sutcliffe has he's wrecked my head for the last 3 years. I'd say I love him. He's a brilliant hurler, but where he was getting the ball, he was making runs from say centre forward out to the sideline. By the time he got a puck out, he was say 2 metres from the sideline. It's a halfback's dream. You either dunt him out and you win a sideline, or he's gone back up the pitch and he's under pressure. Now he's staying in 20 yards, winning his own balls. By the time he gets it, he can go left or right. And you can see him turning defenders again and again. They don't know what to do because he's so pacey. So I think Maddie's nailed that down, where he's telling them, don't run, stay there in your position and win your own ball, because he's good enough to. I think that's a huge plus for Dublin now come Saturday, because I think he can hurt Cork's half back line.
Oh no, he definitely can. But from a Cork point of view, if you stop Crummy and Sutcliffe, Paddy, that's the danger for Dublin. They are very, very, very dependent on those two fellas.
They're very dependent on him to win the ball anyway. But the only thing I'd say about that is, what team isn't dependent on two guys in their half forward line to win ball? Yeah, you could say that about a lot of teams going forward. And this is where I am actually I'm not leaning towards Dublin, but I feel like this is a real 50-50 game. I don't see Cork as massive favourites at all, and a lot of the reason for that is we're relying on young players for Cork, to turn up again and again in this championship and play over and over, and it's not always that easy. I think Chris Crummy and Danny Sutcliffe are a bit of a nightmare mismatch for the Cork half-back line in general. So it's easy to say, sure, we'll just stop them. They're difficult to stop, and they're strong men. And then who's going to be full back for Cork? So is Ronan Hayes going to be on Robert Downey, who actually isn't really a full back and certainly isn't an experienced swing back. So I think there's pressure that way. And the Dublin backs, if you think about the Dublin backs, they're quite a strong back line. Two good cornerbacks, very unlucky to be missing Owen O'Donnell. Like that is a real, red light there, all right. But they have a strong enough back line. So I see this as extremely 50-50. And I think Cork have the better hurlers, right? So it's risky hurlers, not that, but they're young, they're not that experienced, and that can work against you as well. That's the thing. Robert Downey played very well the last day on Shanaher. He was able to bottle him off. Hayes would probably suit him. Who do you see picking up Sutcliffe and Crummy? I do accept as ball winners, but when Sutcliffe goes out of the game, especially, Dublin seem to lose their buzz altogether. And Tim O'Mahony might pick up Crummy. It'll be Cadigan. If Cadigan's fit, it'll probably be Cadigan to pick up Sutcliffe. He'd have the physicality for him. Or young Mellerick, you might get something off him if even though he's playing well. I think O'Mahony will go on Danny. I think he poses more of a threat that for puck outs wise anyway, because Dublin will aim for Danny over Crummy for most puck outs, whereas Crummy's the man who'll battle hard and run across the line and get more ball. Right. But for puck outs wise, Danny's more of a threat, so I can see Tim O'Mahony picking him up straight away, because Ger Cunningham will know what Danny's capable of. You've seen him again and again, so I think that'll be that matchup. I just hope, like Paddy said, the two lads, they're very difficult to stop, and that half back line, if you look across the line, there's no great hands across the line. They're really good hurlers, but they're not great ball winners. No. So I really, really hope that's where Dublin aim for. And then you have Donald Burke sweeping across, and I hope he's given a bit of freedom, because he doesn't go up for any balls. He's waiting, and I hope they use him properly. Well, he will. Well, Coleman will drop off him. Exactly. So you get that bit of freedom. Now, he can't allow Coleman be a playmaker, either a centre back, but I think if Burke is causing enough trouble, it will force Coleman to go follow him and disrupt his game. Yeah, so that's what I'm hoping happens. The obviously we know the Dublin tactic of Burke going back and Rush going free and all those kind of things, Paddy. But Cork will be well used to that with the forwards they have. Like a sweeper to them at this stage is no big deal. They run the ball really well and they give great ball into the forwards. Yeah, and their hurling game is coming on an awful lot. Like I have been impressed with them this year. But they do have the force to do damage, and I think what you're looking at now is the younger players coming through that I think are doing very well. I think Jack O'Connor, to me, is a corner forward. As playing as a cornerback, he's the sort of corner forward you don't like playing against, because he's extremely direct. He's good. He's left-handed now, which is very annoying playing against. But he's a good touch, but he's very, very direct. He's not that big. but he's definitely stronger than he looks, and he's been giving it Rory Hayes, who we've been lauding over the last year.
Yeah.
He's given him a really tough battle the last day, and he gave Sean Finn enough to think about against Limerick as well. So I think he is one they'll really have to clamp down. But again, I think Dublin have good corner backs to kind of stay tight to him, and then Pat Horgan's playing well. But I'm wondering, are Cork going to ever start Alan Connolly? Even in 10 minutes last day, I think he looked more dangerous than a couple of the players for the full 70 minutes.
Completely agree.
He to me should, and Shane Barrett was good as well. So one, if not both of them, to me, if Cork are really serious, has to come in for possibly. Obviously, Alan Cadigan probably won't get a start, but Shane Kingston as well floats in and out of the game, and brilliant finisher. But I'd have one, if not both of those guys in.
That's the thing, and that's the question. They're coming off their first under-20 All-Ireland since '98. It's just that kind of freshness, the confidence. I know Cork don't lack confidence, but it's just we have these two All-Ireland young lads now, and they're full of it. Connolly, I tipped him after seeing him one league game, say he's going to be the story of the summer. I can't understand how this fella's not getting a start.
I don't know if they're trying to mind him only, or protect him from don't want to ruin his confidence, but they're full of confidence. When you come in at under 20, you don't fear anybody. If you have a bad game, it's because you're young. I think it's the safest time for a player to go out there and say, go out there and just do your thing, because you just see that raw energy and wanting the ball and hunger, and lads feed off that, and saying he's only in the squad and he's flying around the place and doing great. We've the upper game here, so I completely agree with Paddy. I think we might see him start the game on Saturday.
He's from the Rockies as well, so he won't lack confidence at club level either.
No, he's smashing hurler. And again, as a defender, you've never played against him, never marked him. It's a different question. You don't know his strengths or his attributes, so it would cause trouble for Dublin.
Here's one I wanted to ask you. What's the little reshuffle Dublin do when Conor Burke goes back centre back? Does Sutcliffe drop into midfield, or how does that work?
Donald Burke normally.
Donald Burke drops into midfield. The
freedom, and when it's a midfield role where he doesn't necessarily mark, he's
around there.
You go around and roam and do what you want, because he's always the outball for Conor Burke or any of the half-backs and the midfielders. Donald Burke's there, so he normally drops back, and that allows then Rushy to roam free, and Connor's there sweeping up, which is very good. But as you say, Cork don't play that long ball too often. They play through the lines, and
that's the problem.
I think Robbie O'Flynn with his pace, and Harnedy had a smashing game last day. He should have had another 3 points. I think they're so good, they just can't be allowed any space in that back line. Unless Connor's there double marking them all the time, I can see them getting a bit of space and hurting us with their pace.
Yeah, they definitely,
so fast.
They definitely go. Because that always interests me, because not always is obvious, Paddy. It's probably because the centre forward traditionally just drops in there anyway. Because I was putting down in my notes here, Conor Burke is going back there. Dublin or Cork know it, so they're going to say, Luke Meade, you're going to be free. When we're attacking, you're free. Can you not make a nuisance of yourself completely? And then, I'm thinking, right, okay, so somebody must drop on him, or else everybody, it would be obvious in every game. And if it's Burke, then it just means that Mark Coleman is completely free every time, Paddy. So he needs to make a nuisance of himself.
And that's it. And the only thing is, if you're reacting to the far sweeper, you still only have 6 backs, whereas the other team have 7. That means there's a lot of space for your sweeper to cover. If you're the one playing it with only the 6 backs. So there's a lot of space to cover. So it is difficult. But it is usually that one just drops back the field. Your corner forward drops out to the half-forward line. Donald Burke drops out to midfield. And I think for Dublin that works perfectly, especially against Galway. He was brilliant out there, and he is their out ball. But the last day then he was off target, and it blew up in their face. But I do think they're due. So that's another reason I think Dublin mightn't go too bad. They're due a big game from him. I didn't think he was up to his high standards the last day, and if he can get his shooting boots on, then they will have a lot more up front and won't be relying on Ronan Hayes or Sutcliffe as much.
Right. So, the interesting the game plan from Dublin is that Wexford, for example, bring back a forward and play him as a sweeper the whole time, but Dublin will play Burke there only when they're defending, but when they're attacking, he'll go back to a midfielder, and when so it'll be orthodox. Yeah. But when they're defending, Burke will go back, Rush will go free.
Keane Boland comes back normally centre forward.
Boland will go out on Coleman, and Burke will go on the midfielder, on Luke Meade. So you're only leaving O'Leary or Donoghue free in the corner when you're defending, and when you're attacking, you're going orthodox.
Yeah, and
there's a very good logic to that.
Absolutely, and the problem, as Paddy said with Donald Burke the last day, was Dublin were unsettled. They weren't. They were off their game. We think with own going off and the COVID thing, Dublin just weren't up to their game plan. They weren't using Burke as much as they should. Like, you need him off the shoulder. I don't want him near tackle. I don't want him near anything. Obviously, you can't let Luke Meade run completely free when they have the ball.
Yeah.
But just be around him. But we want him as the out ball all the time. Now, Conor Burke gets caught in possession the odd time, but I don't mind that because he's trying to do the right thing all the time. He doesn't want to hit the ball up 50-50.
Yeah, like Mark Coleman.
Exactly. You get caught in possession the odd time. I will never give out to him because his job is there to find a man all the time. And he's very good at coming into contact and popping the ball off. So, like as Paddy said, I think Dublin are due a big game. I think if they get it right, and a bit of composure is needed. You know, they lost their composure in the Leinster final. A bit of composure, find the right man in the right position, and they can really hurt Cork.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like, there's some people I was reading the Evening Echo or the Echo Live, I'm not sure what the online version of it, and they were talking about Cork's lack of points. Like, I mean, it's funny, when you're scoring goals, they're worried about the points, and when you're putting up points, why can't we get a few goals? Like, I mean, they scored 319, that's 27 points, and they would have been happy with that. Like, I mean, you know, but like, they scored not, but the one point is, they scored 17 points against Limerick and 19 points against Clare. They are low modern day hurling totals, Paddy, but then again, they missed a lot of goal chances in both games. So they're like, Harnedy could have tapped that over, but he gave it to Bennett, who scored the goal. Or Barrett.
Yeah, I don't know what they're complaining about, being honest with you, because the last 10 years, if you're playing against Cork, you're saying, God, they're scoring too many points because they all get the ball in a nice position, twist, turn over the bar, but they're never actually hurting in your back line. You can nearly stand off them and say, yeah, we'll concede the points because they'll rarely run through us. Bar Harnedy was the only one that would give you trouble the odd time running through you. But, like, you know, Pat Horgan would get it in the corner, point. Alan Canagan and get it in the corner, point. Lahan, same thing, make his own run down the wing. Yeah. So to me, there was never the cohesion that, you know, obviously they nearly won the All-Ireland in 2013, but apart from that, there was never the cohesion that they could trouble a team enough to get a win. And it was also the reason that they couldn't stop another team scoring against them, is that they were playing very, very individualised, I felt. But now we see they might even overplay it the odd time, but I think they're a lot better off. They're overplaying it, trying to get a goal, trying to maybe put the right man into the right position, than if they're lashing points their way and kind of maybe never really troubling a team in their full back line. Yeah,
I think so too. I suppose it's just something you're trying to look at maybe to improve on. I'm not sure. Who are you worried about? What matchups do you see from, like, who do you think will pick up Fitzgibbon? He needs to burst into the championship for me. He's playing inside himself, I would say.
I know. It's like, for Fitzgibbon, I'd probably put Madden out in midfield marking him, because he's just so influential. Like, when he gets going and he's in his pump, he could score 3 or 4 points in no time, and that's why I'm so worried, because when he's matched up, then who's with Luke Meade, you know, and like, it's very difficult. But the man for me is Seamus Harnedy, because, like, I marked him in 2013. Just his movement off the ball is so difficult. And
you didn't really want to talk about 2013. I'm wondering, like, was there a sort of... He only scored 2 points. I checked it out.
We were like, we had a very good half back line at the time, and they ran riot on us fully. Just our movement, and you know, as a half back, you want to play it. You want to be on the ball. You want to get the ball. Didn't have a minute to even be there for a puck out the end, because his movement was just... He was in full forward. He was half back. He was across the pitch. Just their movement was so difficult to mark, and I think he's so important. We talk about points, he missed 2 or 3 easy ones the last day, but his vision then for the goal, and as Paddy said, he's the man who will go for goal all the time, and he's a great hand. Like, he's a really good hand. He's not, like, massively big in stature, but he's such a good hand. His timing is excellent. So for me, like, Dara Gray's been great for Dublin, but I think he should pick up, because he is a cornerback and he has that experience of man marking. I think he'd be the man to do the job on him, because he has
the size too.
He's my worry. He's my worry of all the players Cork have. He's my worry.
And Patrick Horgan out 11. Is that a worry?
Yeah, well, Patrick Horgan will float. He'll go in and out. So like he more time or not, I think you'll see him in the full forward line. So I'd probably have Paddy Smith and him, to be honest with you, because you just can't let him round. But then you're talking about who's Jack O'Connor, because I thought he was phenomenal the last day. He was pace and all, so it's going to pose problems for Dublin's defence. But for me, Harnady's the man who makes them tick.
The interesting thing about this game, Paddy, is that by far Cork's biggest strength is their forward line, and by far Dublin's biggest strength is their back line and their structure. You know, so, like, I mean, whoever comes out on top of that, we'll probably know who's going to win this one after 10 minutes.
You will, and you know what it is too, within that, it's who's dominating the ball around the middle, because, you know, the Dublin backline will be able to withstand a certain amount of ball coming in, but if Cork are dominating and running the ball and playing their type of game, which they're capable of doing, you can't hold those players out for that long. You know, we haven't even mentioned Robbie O'Flynn, who to me is having a very good season. He's running very, very hard, and him and Hardy are capable of making the goal chances. But it's the control around the middle of the field. We talk tactics and who drops in, and Conor Burke drops in. Who's dominating that area, and that really will decide, I think, because I think they're quite even teams now. Maybe, hey, I could be completely wrong at the weekend, but I think they're quite evenly matched, and Dublin have a little more experience in areas, but Cork are this new upcoming team, and I just think it's really interesting and very, very hard to pick a winner for me now, because I'm just looking at them saying, what will I get out of this Cork young team? You know, I haven't seen it fully yet. Like Limerick, you'd say they did well against Limerick, but then how much better did Limerick play in the second half against Tip than they ever did against Cork? So to me, it's a bit of a conundrum, and I'm really enthralled by it now, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be like it's going to be for me. Cork are the winners all day long, Michael. I get your
yeah, it's like Paddy. It's so close.
Make the case for Dublin. Where are Dublin? How are Dublin going to get the scores on the board?
I think Dublin, if they use the ball properly, they'll get the space. Donald Burke will be allowed the space to cause trouble, because I think Mark Coleman will sit back and defend. And if Dublin don't hit,
what's Burke going to do with it then?
I think he'll score. There's no need to hit the ball in. Like, I think Ronan Hayes will cause more problems to Downey than Shanahan did, because I think Hayes has more movement. He won't want the ball high. I think
Shanahan stays there, right?
Exactly. I think Hayes will be pulling them left and right, and all it takes. Downey played a great game, but just if he has that half-back mentality, he might come out and miss a ball and think there's someone behind him, and I think Hayes can punish him. So I think we might get a goal or two from there, from good ball in. And then I think if Dublin use the ball around the middle with Connor, Rushy and Burke, I think we can cause trouble where we can score from out the pitch, and you don't even have to get the ball in. And just every so often, if it sticks inside as well, and it's a bonus point rather than anything else.
Okay.
So I think Dublin can hurt them from scores out the pitch more than getting goals.
Right, but Burke is key. How do you make the case? I have a feeling you're leaning towards Dublin here, Paddy. Are you?
Yeah, I kind of am. It's kind of like a gut thing. It's not really like a science I'm kind of working out in my head. It's like a gut, and I feel like psychologically Dublin are coming in. They're coming in stronger than you think, because they were so handicapped the last day, I thought, and they had such a good performance against Galway. I still think they feel like they can produce that performance again, and even though Galway missed a lot of chances, they shut them down in a lot of aspects of the game. I think from Cork, right, we haven't seen yet. Like, Cork have a history of letting themselves down when it just looks like, yes, they're back. Okay, now I do think these new players are quite good. They're really, really young and inexperienced as well. So I just, for some reason, in my own head, it's not any brilliant analysis, I feel Dublin might shade it. I think they have a hard edge, and I haven't seen that out of Cork yet. And I thought Clare were not good the last day, didn't look one bit fresh, and Cork struggled over the line against them. So all in all, I just maybe shade Dublin.
Like, okay. Dublin will look at the last game, will he not be in the Kilkenny game as their Galway game, because that's when they had a panel, and that's when they didn't have the COVID thing. I think they can nearly use that. Maddie will use that as saying, wash that last game off. So our last game was a brilliant win against Galway.
But now Cork are doing the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
And they've ironed out. They performed very well against Limerick. All things, being told, because they conceded 2 sucker punches and only lost by less than 8 points. But they were and then to beat a Clare team that everyone said was on a roll. Most people tipped Clare, I think, on the show here, and they're coming into the game having ironed out some issues, and for me, they're flying it as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Cork, and they have options. Like, we're naming people like Adam Callaghan hasn't even performed near his ability, so we're naming players that are due big games as well.
And Dublin don't have a bench.
No, they don't, and that's worrying me, because if you pick up an injury on Saturday early days, we haven't got that impact on the bench. Now I'm hoping Oisin O'Rourke came on and gave a great ball against Galway to Crummy, but he was out last day with COVID. But that's one impact nearly all year, and that's where I'm worried then from 17 to 20 of who's going to come in. But if we stay injury free, I think we can hurt them. But it's a big if, obviously, because it's going to be physical.
What Donald do you reckon, lads?
I think Cian O'Callaghan will push in full back, and I think Andrew Dunphy will go in corner.
He'll stay there.
I think so. I think it's the obvious move. I wouldn't Sean Moran. I'd love him to come in half back, but he just hasn't been performing.
Well, let's talk about Sean. We mentioned him at the start. Sean Moran's been on this show before. I'm a big fan of his when he was with Coola.
Yeah.
And even the first year or two with Dublin, playing that role pretty much Liam Rush has now.
Yeah.
Because he's a great brain and everything. What's happened this lad?
I honestly don't know what he and even speaking to lads, it's just a lack of like he seems to have just lost himself altogether. Like,
didn't he go to the forwards with the club?
He did. He played half forward, wing forward.
Has that kind of messed him up a little?
I don't know, because he was excellent there as well. You know, because he's the type of hurler,
played well there.
You could put him anywhere in the pitch because he's normally so composed. Normally I'd say for 2 or 3 years there he was Dublin's best player by a mile.
Yeah.
I wanted him on the ball all the time, and normally when he has the ball he looks like he's all the space in the world, even though he doesn't. Now I've seen him fumble ball after ball, and I'm hoping like he can shake it off and have a massive game come like on Saturday, or if they go further.
Because he was brought on and brought off, and that wasn't an injury.
No, and that's like, imagine what that would do to low confidence anyway. Do you know?
Oh, it's happened to me.
Don't worry. When was that, Willie? That'd be awful.
It happened to me in an All-Ireland quarter-final.
Oh no!
I was only back from injury, but look, and the one taken off I couldn't give out about. I was glad nearly to be put out of my misery. It was absolutely desperate altogether. Holy shit!
You'd be dreading seeing anyone after. Like, you just go into hiding for a while. But like someone who's lacking confidence, and then that happens. But look, no one knows that man better than Matty Kenny. Like, he's had him as a Warrior with Cooler for so long, and he's had him with Dublin, and he's performed huge from so many times. So he might stick with him and say, like, it's in your locker, and he might have a quiet word with him, but we're just not seeing it tomorrow. I honestly can't put my finger on why.
I'd maybe try him in the forwards or full forward or something. But anyways, listen, this is more of a chat we'd have after the show. We're only speculating here on poor Sean Moran. We'll leave it there, lads. You're going for Dublin, I'm going for Cork, you're going for Tipperary, I'm going for Waterford. Listen, there can be only one winner here.
You won't go out, Willie. You won't go out.
I love these days when I go out on my own. Right, listen, we'll leave it there, boys. We'll be back on Monday and we'll review all the games. It's a bank holiday Monday, but we're doing a show. We'll talk to you all then. Good luck.